Welcome to the fourth module of the course Cloud Computing. In this module, we will see the deployment models of cloud. So, in the last few modules, we have looked at the infrastructure of cloud, which was distributed infrastructure, resource virtualization and autonomous systems. We looked at the various resources, which were the compute and the storage servers, the networks, the services and the various applications. Then we looked at the defining attributes of cloud, which were massive infrastructure, utility computing, pay per use or pay as you go, accessible via internet and elasticity. Next, we saw all the deployment models, in which we saw that we can deploy cloud using public cloud, which means that it will be accessible to everybody, and anybody who is interested in using the cloud will be allowed to use the cloud at a cost, of course. Then we saw private cloud, where we saw that people are creating cloud for their own organization and only allowing people related to that organization to use these clouds. A slightly bigger such organizational cloud would be a community cloud, where instead of a specific organization, a community of users can use the cloud. And we saw a fourth type of deployment, which is the hybrid cloud, because we saw that private cloud is very limited in its resources. We can extend the private cloud to a public cloud as and when it is required, and that combination is called the hybrid cloud. So, we are left with the fifth part of the cloud computing overall overview, which are the delivery models. Now, in delivery models, we will first see the delivery model called software as a service, and then we will see the next delivery model, which is platform as a service, and then we will see the third delivery model, which is infrastructure as a service. So, cloud infrastructure is overall enablement of cloud comes from the infrastructure and the utilities, which will be the overall requirement of the cloud system. Now, in this we have the software as a service, which is the packaged software application. While we are going to use software as a service, which are only the applications, sometimes users also require framework as a service. Many times the enterprise relationship processing systems or ERPs are very important software systems, and they require what is called a framework as a service. Next comes the platform as a service. In platform as a service, or in short form we call it a PaaS, here the whole environment for building an application will be given, so that the user can create their own application in a runtime container. We will come and explain in a moment all this. And then we have the infrastructure as a service, or in short form it is called IaaS, where we have the environment into which we can build a native application. Now, let us look at the different delivery models in details. Software as a service, or SaaS, is the capability provided to the consumer to use the provider's applications running on a cloud infrastructure, and these applications will be accessible from various devices which are to be used by the clients through either a thin client interface or from a program interface. If we look at the working of SaaS, we see that the application belongs to the provider. That means the service provider who are going to deploy the services will also deploy the specific application which will be required by the users. So, the users involvement in a SaaS kind of model is to use the specific application, only supply the respective data, get the data processed by that specific application and get back the results. The user does not control in this SaaS model, they do not control anything other than what kind of data should be processed by the application. So, which implies that the application, the specific version of that application, how long it is going to run, how much memory it is going to use, all these will be decided by the service provider. So, SaaS consumer does not manage or control the underlying infrastructure. What are these infrastructures? The infrastructure is the network infrastructure, the infrastructure are the servers where the application program is running. The infrastructure is the operating system on top of which the application program is running. The infrastructure is the storage where from the data perhaps is going to come, and even the individual application capabilities are, none of these are going to be managed or controlled by the consumer. All these capabilities will be controlled by the SaaS provider, which is the cloud provider. So, where are SaaS models suitable? We can look at the suitability of a service by looking at under what circumstances the model will be greatly beneficial, and also under what circumstances people should not use SaaS models. So, SaaS is suitable for such products which are where many competitors are using the same product, such as an example is email example, where many people are using the email. So, if we look at the email example, we understand where the most benefit of SaaS comes from. Email is an example, is a platform or an application which will be used in the same format by all the users. We have an inbox, we have a message sent box, we have the all the folders, we have a trash folder where all the spam messages will go, and so on and so forth. We have a compose email button. If we click that button, we can see the we can get a page where we can write the new email. This structure is the same for all users. So, we do not need to personalize or customize this structure, or rather in a SaaS model we cannot personalize or customize this structure. Whatever the structure the provider is providing, all users necessarily have to use that specific structure, but what data you keep or one keeps inside email inbox will be specific to the user. So, data is being supplied by us, but everything else is being controlled by the service provider. Then SaaS model is suitable for periodically if there is a significant peak in demand, such as billing or payroll. In case of billing or in case of payroll, we can understand that we do not create a payroll or we do not use the payroll software all the time. We use it for a certain number of days in a month, and when everybody has obtained their payments, we again will be using it after so many days. These kind of software applications which are periodically used or not used all the time, but at certain time the usage is very high, we need a SaaS model. Similarly, if there is a need for web or mobile access, such as mobile sales management software, and also if the need is a short term need, such as any collaborative software project. For all these examples, SaaS is a very suitable module. However, SaaS is not suitable if the application requires any real-time response. For real-time response, we need to look at the kind of data that is going to come, the time at which it is going to come, and what we are going to how we are going to process that data. All these details are not known from earlier. So, therefore, any application that works with a real time data is not suitable to be used in a SaaS development model. Further, applications for which data is not allowed to be hosted externally are also not suitable. Why these kind of applications are not suitable applications for SaaS? It is because if data is not external, cannot be given from external sources, which means that the users cannot give data from outside. That means the user needs to have access to the application development process, in which the data will be changed every time the application runs. So, since this requires the user to access the internals of the application, therefore, such applications SaaS is not suitable. And the third case where the SaaS model is not suitable are applications that requires changes or tuning. Any application that requires us to change often enough is not suitable. Assume we are trying to write a program where we are going to add two numbers, or maybe after we have created this software, our requirement changes to add 3 numbers. So, this will require that I write the program first, at which point in time my requirement was that I want to add 2 numbers, and then I change my requirement and I need to change the application and make it suitable for adding 3 numbers. This kind of environment where the application itself requires some kind of change, SaaS model does not work. So, now we come to the PaaS model. The PaaS model, according to NIST, says it is a capability provided to the consumer to deploy onto the cloud infrastructure consumer created or acquired applications created using programming languages, libraries, services and tools supported by the provider. So, in case of PaaS, we see a distinct difference from SaaS. Here, we are allowed to, or we are able to write our own applications. So, in SaaS, we were using someone else's application, we were supplying the data and we are executing the application in the provider's premise with our data. But in case of PaaS, we are able to write our own applications. This is a platform, or this is a model where our earlier example will be absolutely suitable. Which was the example? The example was that I want to create a program for adding two numbers, and then I change my requirement, and then I write or make changes in that application program, and then make it suitable for adding three numbers. So, PaaS provides us with such infrastructure so that we can write or create our own applications, but the support will come from the provider. What support? The support in terms of the programming language, support in terms of the libraries, support in terms of any other services that may be required to develop this particular application, and support of any tools. All these will be provided by the service provider, but the application will be created or acquired individually by the user. So, PaaS consumer, what is it that they do? They do not need to manage or control the underlying infrastructure. So, what are the elements that they do not need to worry about? The elements are network, servers, operating systems, and storage. These are the underlying cloud infrastructure which is not controlled by the consumer. But what is it that has changed from the SaaS model? Now, in PaaS, the user has control over the deployed applications and the configuration settings for the application hosting environment. So, this means that not only I have written my application, I also can control under what environment my application will run. If we compare it with SaaS, we can clearly see that in SaaS we have no control over the environment, we have no control over the application, we have no control over the API that the application program interface that the application provides to us. We have no control. In PaaS, we have a little bit more control in terms of we can define what kind of, on what operating system my application is going to run. The service provider will provide the operating system, or we can deploy our own operating systems and then we can run our applications, but we do not have control over the other infrastructures. We have control over only our application. PaaS, the platform as a service, gives the capability to deploy consumer created or acquired applications using the provider's programming languages and tools. However, the user has the ability to control the hosting environment. So, where should I use a PaaS kind of model? The major PaaS application areas are in software development. So, if we want to create a software, then we should use a PaaS kind of model. These application developments or software developments should require, or ideally should use, multiple developers and users, and these people are perhaps collaborating and using the cloud environment to create, deploy and test their services automatically. So, here are the important keywords, that the multiple developers, they are collaborating with each other and they are deploying and testing the service that is automated. So, what this says is that in case a single developer is developing an application, even then pass is suitable. It is not to mention that pass is not suitable during that time, but the pass application development is particularly more useful when we have various developers contributing to one application development. Collaborating such development environment is very difficult if we do not use cloud. So, cloud pass environment will be particularly useful if we have an environment where I have multiple developers contributing in a collaborative manner to the development of a pass software. So, where is pass not suitable? Pass is not useful if we have an application that needs to be a portable application. So, this means that as an example we can think of that if I am developing an application which is a Windows based application, and then I want to port this application to a Linux based platform, then pass kind of environment is not suitable. Pass is also not suitable when some proprietary programming languages are being used, and pass is not suitable when the underlying hardware and the software must be customized for improvement. Next we come to infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service says it is the capability provided to the consumer to provision processing, storage, networks and other fundamental computing resources where the consumer is able to deploy, run arbitrary software including the operating system and application. So, in an IaaS, the consumer does not manage or control the underlying infrastructure or the hardware, but the consumer has complete control over the operating system, the storage and of course the deployed applications. To some extent, the networking components also are under control of the consumer. So, in IaaS, services will be delivered, any server hosting, web services, storage computing hardware. If we want to develop an operating system or if we want to generate a load balancing environment, all these are suitable for IaaS. So, typical IaaS characteristics will be that resources are distributed, a dynamic scaling, that means the increase and decrease will be supported by the environment. The pricing model is of course utility pricing model, which means that a pay as you go or pay per use model is supported, and the hardware is shared by multiple users. So, where IaaS is suitable? When I do not have a fixed demand, which means the demand is volatile, it is changing. Any new business who is coming up and an organization which is expanding very radically. So, so far we saw that the three service models are being to be used in specific cases or specific environments. Now, we will look at the control of the user over these service models. So, this is the cloud stack. We have networking, storage, the server hardware, virtualization environment, the servers, databases, security, runtimes and the applications. Given these various elements in the server stack, in case of IaaS, the blue ones show the users are managing. So, users are managing applications, runtime, security and databases, but the rest are all being managed even in an IaaS model by the providers. In a PaaS model, users are managing only the applications, the rest are being managed by the providers. and in SaaS model everything is being managed by the service providers. So, these are the control model for the different model. So, if we look at the ownership, we see that the hardware which consists of CPU, memory, disk and networking are always under the control of the cloud service provider. The infrastructure, which are the computation, which is the virtual machine and the storage blocks, will be used and managed by the infrastructure as a service users. The platform, which is all the software platform and the storage, will be managed by the PaaS users, and the applications, which can be any business applications, will be only used by the SaaS providers, SaaS users, and not managed by the users at all. And this whole environment will be in a virtualized environment. So, we look at the advantages of SaaS. These are all the advantages. It is easy to deploy, the time of deployment is less, cost is less, it is available, it has nice interface, it is easily scalable, and the responsibility belongs to the vendor. In SaaS, the control is not there, integration with other vendors is not possible, any mission critical functions it is not possible using SaaS. Between different competitors there is no differentiation, and it is eventually in the long run it becomes a costly affair. So, if we compare, we see that the SaaS is characterized by the anywhere availability, and there are some vendors which provide Salesforce.com, Google Apps are all SaaS. PaaS, where platforms are used by from the vendors, and we have Google App Engine and Microsoft Azure are the vendors, and IaaS, where everything is being controlled from the application stack onwards by the user, and my Amazon EC2 and S3 are some of the applications. For any new technology, we have 3 levels of technological dependencies. Some are foundation technologies, some are technologies based on which that it is developed, and some are technologies which are being used. In the next session, we will look at cloud computing from this perspective. So, in summary of this session, we have seen that there are 3 delivery models that cloud typically uses. One is called SaaS, one is called PaaS, and the third is called IaaS. And using these models, the delivery of all the services are done in a cloud environment.